Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. So I ended up taking the full 2 weeks away for you guys, obviously because the other week it was a crazy week in work. Then the weekend it was my birthday, Father's Day and my brother-in-law's birthday, and then I've had this week off work, which has been wonderful. I needed the break for sure. I've done a lot of relaxing, gone walking, spent time with mum and dad, and yeah, just chilling out, and it's really helped. I can't believe I'm going to be back at work on Monday. Today's Saturday. I'm filming this like first thing in the morning to get it done out of the way, and then I can spend the rest of my weekend relaxing and I don't have to think about anything else that I need to do. But yeah, I can't believe I'm back at work on Monday. I think it's going to be a hard day back on Monday. I can just sense it because I've gotten just so used to just chilling and not doing anything. So having to actually get up and get ready for the day properly, right first thing in the morning, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, for sure. I've got some books for my birthday and I bought a couple as well. So I'm going to let you know now that the theme for the next 5 reads are going to be birthday, because they're going to be the books that I bought myself and books that I got for my birthday, which is going to be good. They're a real mix, which is really great. Something new. So yeah, I'll be announcing those obviously when I've reached the end of this current 5 that I am reading. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. It's yeah, I really needed the break for sure, definitely. But now, I am back with you guys to talk about the book I've been reading. Well, technically, it's been 2 weeks since I've seen you, but it's been less than 2 weeks to read this. And that is Me and My Shadows by Lorna Luft. So in case you are not aware who Lorna Luft is, she is the middle child of Judy Gardland. She is half sister to Liza Minnelli, because Liza had a different father, and she is her same blood, same father, to her younger brother Joe. And Lorna had a difficult childhood. I think that's easy. That's fair to say. She very much dealt with her mother going through her addiction and rages and such, and felt the full force of that. But it wasn't her fault. She was kind of given the job to deal with it, which I'll explain in a minute. But this book is about her life with her mother. It was written in 1998, so obviously there have been things that have happened in Lorna's life since then, which aren't covered in this book whatsoever. And she ends the book saying how, in relation to her sister Liza, that they're not in a good place at the moment. They're not really talking, but maybe time will change that, and it has changed that. She and Liza are now back to being in good books with each other, so which is really lovely, given the stuff that she covers in this book and stuff that they went through in their past. So yeah, so this is basically telling the story of Lorna, her life, and her mother's life. To give you just a gist of this, the way that it's structured, Judy basically met Sid Luft, her father, when she was about 26, 27, I think it was, and he would be her third husband. So, and she already had Liza, as I said. Liza, by the time Lorna was born, Liza was 7. So there was quite an age gap between her and Liza. Thus, as she says, when I wanted to play dolls and stuff with her, she was wanting to go out with her friends because she was reaching teenage years. So it was, it was natural that they didn't have a very, very close relationship when they grew up because of their age gap. And yes, so all of Judy's life up to the point where she meets Sid is covered just in the first 2 chapters. She does a very, very quick view of, okay, this is where she was born, these are her family, this is kind of what she did, this is how her career started, yada, yada, yada. And then when chapter 3 starts of this is the point where she met my dad. That's where it takes off. It follows through the rest of Judy's life, and then Judy dies probably about 2/3, between half and 2/3 of the way through this book, and then the rest is after Judy's death and Lorna launching her career. So then it becomes an autobiography, if you see what I mean. So it's got a lot going on. There's a lot of family history in here, but what I truly respect and really admire about this book is how blunt Lorna Luft is about everything from traveling about, having this crazy life, about addiction, about her mother's rages, about her own addictions and such. She shows very much the light and extremely the dark. She's not sentimental at all, not in the slightest, and I truly respect her for that. To have gone through the life that she did, to have dealt with everything that she had to deal with, and just go, this is normal. Fair play to her. You can't be sentimental about this. Even though she looks back at her mum and go, oh, we had lovely times and such. She just tells it as it is. She talks a lot about how people will come up to her, and still do, and tell her what a tragedy her mother was, what a tragic life her whole family led. I know exactly what you're feeling. And she's like, I'm sorry, who the hell are you to tell me that? You never lived my life. You never lived in my family. You don't know anything about me. So don't say that. It must be very, very hard because of how Judy Garland was so well known. People felt they, in a way, owned her, that they knew her exactly, but nobody ever, these people who kept coming up to her and still do to this day, didn't personally know her. And at the very beginning of the book, she says, look, I am writing this because I need to write it, I want to write it, and also every book that's been written about my mother has been written by somebody who doesn't even know our family or is not in the family, who never spoke to anybody from our family. So I'm going to set some records straight. This is it. And so her blunt honesty at the very beginning, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. And it really was. It was fascinating. There were so many stories, so many little things which have never come up in media, and her perspective and her family perspective of things which have come up in the media. So, for example, when Judy was a young girl with, her sisters and her parents living in Minnesota, they had to move. And they moved to California, where they established theatre and led on to Judy being discovered for films and launched her career. But the reason why they left Minnesota, it's always been stated that Judy's father was bisexual and that he got arrested for trying to lure I think about 13 or 14-year-old boy to do sexual acts, and that's caused a scandal. And when he got out of prison and so not prison, but being investigated, the scandal was too large. They had to run out of time. That's always been reported in like every single one of the books about Judy. Any documentary you see about Judy, it states that. However, Lorna says that's never been mentioned in our family. I have hired somebody to go through public records, police records, newspapers from that time in the town. as thoroughly as possible as he possibly could. And there is not one mention, there is not one record, there is no police record of this happening. Now, it is possible that obviously a police record might have gone lost, it might have gone missing, it might have been destroyed. But generally, papers where obviously that's a big scandal, it would definitely be in there. There's not one piece about it. So she goes, so I don't even know, because we never talked about it. I don't even know if it's true. But I can only go on historical evidence, and historical evidence states that it didn't happen. So that's all I can say about that. Done. Let's move on. And she does that. She takes all of these things about her family life and breaks it down, and then goes, right, this is what we know, this is what I was told, this is how I feel about it. So there's lots of different parts about that, which I really respect her for doing as well. I really think you really need to be candid when it comes to something like this, where you're talking about addiction through the eyes of a child. Because by the time Lorna was born, Judy had been on drugs since she was probably about, 10 years old, because her mother started putting her on drugs. And then when she got to MGM, when she was about 12, 13, that was when they started prescribing drugs to her. And then it never stopped, and it escalated, and it got worse and worse and worse. So yeah, she was proper addict before Lorna was born. So it's it's so sad that happened, for sure. But yeah, but she's saying I grew up in an addicted house. I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know what was normal and what was not normal. But this is what my life was. And she goes through it step by step. But I think as she got older, she realised this can't be right. This is not right. The rages that they dealt with. At one time, Judy even threw a butcher knife at Joe and nearly killed him. There was no money in the house. They had to go to neighbours' houses, friends' houses to have food, because there was nothing in the house, things like that. And she realised, no, this isn't right. But what I especially loved about this book is in her adult years, how thanks to Liza and her addiction problems, Lorna went to this therapy session. It was like as part of Liza being in the Betty Ford clinic, the family had to do a therapy thing as well for 10 days, and to kind of understand how they see addiction and all this, learn, and as well as for the therapist to understand the family structure, to help, in this case, Liza. And she never done therapy, like that. She just was like, why am I having to do this? Okay, fine, I'll do it. If it's part of the program that Liza has to do, I guess I'll go along and do it. And that 10 days was a massive revelation for her, because she learnt to put the ghost of her mother and her mother's death, which Lorna sadly always kind of blamed herself for, and said, why wasn't I there? Could I have saved her? I knew what she needed in medicine and all this. Medicine. Why wasn't I there? I said I'd always be with her, and I wasn't. She died alone. Why? That's my fault. And this therapist just explained to her, it wasn't your fault at all. You were 16 years old, and in a completely different country. It's just, it would have happened if it wasn't that moment when Judy died. It would have happened in another place at another time, and that you, Lorna, are not to blame. You were not in control of this situation. You were a child at the end of the day. And it was a massive revelation for her. And since that moment, she has seen addiction and everything in a whole new way. And she has broken the cycle. Multiple generations of Judy's family of women have had addiction and mental health issues. And she's broken that cycle for her children. And it's wonderful to see her process of learning that and doing that and putting stuff into place. I felt so not close to Lorna, but I felt like it was like a friend and somebody, sometimes in your life you'll have a situation and sometimes you want your friends to just be all not focus on it, look at something, just block the bad thing out. And Lorna is the friend who goes, look, this is shit, this has happened, but are we going to fret about it? No, we're going to do these steps instead. She's the really blunt, honest friend that you need from time to time. And to have the courage that she did to write this, to break down her family history, to tell stories that the media have never seen, reported before, to talk about her own addictions, to talk about her family, family problems. And when I say family problems, I don't necessarily mean addiction. I mean, there are other things to do, like mental health, suicide, just relations between siblings. To have the courage to do that so bluntly and yet with so much heart is extraordinary. I absolutely loved every minute of reading this book. I really think Judy's life is always defined as tragedy, as tears, as struggle, and surviving or trying to not being able to survive the horrors of this world. And there's actually a point in this book where Lorna says, people tell me that because of what I've gone through and where I am right now, I'm a survivor. And she goes, that's bullshit. She literally just says, that's bullshit. A survivor to me is somebody who has gone through the worst things in humanity and has now come out the other side and is rebuilding their life. So that is people who have gone through the Holocaust, for example. They are survivors. I am just somebody who had to cope with a dark situation, but that does not, it is nowhere near the darkness that humanity can take. So I don't like being called a survivor. I'm a coper. That's the way it is. And I just want to applaud Lorna for writing this. I've read other like autobiographies or biographies in general of people who have had an addiction, and it tends, with biographies that are written by other people, they emphasize the really dark stuff and everything, and in an autobiography it will get explained in a clearer way, but still can be very weighty. Whereas Lorna, she describes the honest weighty, but she does it with a lightness to it that means that it's more personal and you understand it better. She's not gonna tell you about what it's like to crash after you've been high all night or something, what it's like to wake up the next day and being sick or all that lot. She's not going to go there. She's just like, yeah, it was fun. It was a party drug, but then the party stopped, and I thought, you know what? I can't be asked to have to deal with what used to take a few hours to get over, take days to get over because I was getting older. I can't be bothered to be doing that. I've got a career. I've got things to do. So I stopped. She will only go as deep as she wants you to know about, But when she does go deep, she will be brutally honest with you. And there's something that just really shows her resilience on the page because of that. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. I'm just going to read you a bit from the book, which is about her mother. And this is one of the stories that didn't really get out in the media. But this is about Tom Green. So Tom Green was one of Judy's later lovers. So after Sid, she'd married Mark, who was gay. Then she moved on to Tom Green, but they never got married. But, you know, he wanted them to marry, but that didn't happen. And then she had Mickey Deans was the last husband. So that's where it is. So Lorna is probably about, I don't know, 14, 15 at this point. Oh yeah, because this is where Lorna fell ill when she was 15 because of the struggle of dealing with her mum. She actually had a nervous breakdown at the age of 15. So this is just before that happens. So by the time she and Tom were fighting about money too, Tom had hocked 2 of my mother's rings during one of her frequent stints in hospital. I heard several stories about why he hocked them. At one point, my mother said that he'd sold them to buy birthday presents for Joe's 13th birthday. Another time, he said he sold them to pay my mother's hospital bill. He said she told him to. She denied that. Whatever the truth, the jewellery ended up in a pawn shop. The rings were beautiful, an emerald set with diamonds and another ring set with diamonds and pearls. I loved that emerald. We never got it back. I did not have any in my I don't have any in my mother's jewellery. By the time that she died, it had all been sold. Apparently, the incident with the rings was the last straw in the relationship that was already stained. Not long afterwards, my mother decided to get rid of Tom Green in true Garland style. One night, she looked at me and said, "I know how to get back at that son of a bitch." She picked up the phone and called the Bellevue Hospital, telling whoever picked up the phone that it was an emergency, and proceeded to give an Oscar-worthy performance. "You have to help me," she sobbed into the phone. "My husband's taken an overdose and he's going to kill himself." I could hear the person on the other end say something, and then my mum replied, "His name's Tom Green." No, he's not here. He's at the Alray Hospital. You have to help me, please. He's just taken an overdose of sleeping pills, and I'm afraid that he's going to die. You have to help him before the pills get into his system." More sobbing, more talking on the other end, and then, "Please save his life. He's having a breakdown." Sorry, my word's getting all blur. "He's having a breakdown. He needs help." Sob. I sat in a chair by the phone, eyeballs popping, watching her. A moment later, I heard her say, Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, right away." And then, "Oh, by the way, he's got a Judy Garland fixation. Please be kind." My jaw dropped. Then she hung up, turned to me and said, "Well, that ought to do it." Sure enough, as I found out later, an ambulance went screaming over to the Elray Hotel in the middle of the night. 2 big attendants took poor Tom Green to the hospital by force, and they pumped his stomach. All the time they were dragging him down the hall to pump his stomach, he was shouting, "I know who did this. It was Judy Garland. I tell you, it was Judy Garland." And the emergency team said, There now. It'll be all right. We're going to take good care of you." My mother knew how to get rid of a man. So I just loved all of these stories that came out from this book. It truly is a wonderful book to read, and given that I've loved Judy Garland for so long, I've read various books about her, I know her film career and life story well, to then pick up a book where it retold that story in such a personal way was wonderful to read, for sure. As I said, Judy's life ends about between half to 2/3 of the way through this book, and the rest is about Lorna growing into adulthood, developing her career, and discovering the truth about addiction and understanding her mother. So I loved that. I love the fact that Lorna just didn't stop with her mother's death. As it says at the bottom, the living with the legacy of Judy Garland, it will never end. It will go on and on and on. But the way that Lorna looks at her mother's legacy, the beginning of the book versus the end of the book, are very, very different, thanks to what she learned from the Betty Ford thing after after her mother passed away. And it's an absolutely beautiful thing to read, to go through. So thank you, Lorna, for writing this book, this wonderful book about your mum. And I really think, despite the darkness stuff that's in it, I think your mum would be very proud of you for writing this. So thank you very much for doing so. Now, there is a drama that this was made into a 3-part drama. I think it was like 2000 or 2001. All 3 parts are on YouTube, which I will link in the description below. And yeah, I've seen it multiple times, but seeing it again after I read the book, because I finished this a few days ago, so that gave me a few days to rewatch it. It feels weird now because, right, it's a 3-hour drama. An hour and a half of it shows Judy's life up to the point where she meets Sid Luft, which means an hour and a half of it is just the first 2 chapters of this book alone. And then it ends at Judy's death. So the whole point of this book is about living with a legacy and understanding her mother and such. That gets thrown out the window. It's just let's tell the story of Judy Garland, and stuff like the whole thing about her, Judy's father, Lorna's grandfather, being bisexual, is played out in this drama. It's like, but in the book that you're basing on, Lorna told you it's not likely to happen, but they do. So it's kind of like, it's a very, very weird drama to look back then. And some of the stories, the really unique stories, which media didn't know about because it was all within the family, don't get played out in the drama either. So it's like, well, what? It's like they were using the title of the book just to use the title, and then just made a drama about Judy Garland's life based on what was known in the media before then. It was like, well, that's not how it works. So even though I still do like the drama, because I've liked it for many years, from when it was first released, I remember seeing it. I look at it now and I'm a bit like, this is a bit weird. But maybe it's because I've watched it so close to reading the book. Maybe I need to give it some extra time and I'll feel better about it. I don't know. But yeah, I'd still say watch the drama, but be aware that there are things that are very much not what is in the book. Let me put it that way. Right, so I'm like 28 minutes, so I should wind this up. So, what are my thoughts on this? So, would I read this again? Yes, definitely. I would really love to read this again. It was a wonderful read. It was really easy to read. It was full of heart, full of joy. There was sadness in it, but it was brutal honesty. And sometimes you just need that. So definitely read this again. I would say, would I read any more of Lorna's books? But I don't think Lorna has read any other books. Written any other books. So if she has written any other books, I would read more of Lorna's work. But as far as I know, she hasn't, which is sad. So, Lorna, perhaps you should write another book. Can't believe I got read and write the wrong way around just then. Silly me. The way my brain works. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I already have. I recommended it to my mum because we were talking about it the other day when we went for a walk. And yeah, I definitely say that if you want to read a biography about Judy Garland and about addiction and how it works in the family structure, definitely check out Me and My Shadows by Lorna Luft. So there we go. So those are my thoughts on Me and My Shadows by Lorna Luft. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Entirely to you, let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is The Murders at White House Farm by Carol Ann Lee. Very much looking forward to reading this and the next book, which is also relating to the same set of murders. So yeah, let's read about Jeremy Bamber. And oh, he's so guilty. It's just how people didn't think he's innocent, I don't know, but that's a whole nother, that's for next time. So I will see you guys when I have finished reading that book. All right then, guys. Bye.